Hello knitters. I'm going to show you a few things about fixing knitting, or actually just picking your knitting back up. If you like this video, would you give me a thumbs up on it? And really, it would be really cool if you subscribe to my videos, and that would kind of help my channel a little bit. I just want to get my word out that, you know, these are kind of tutorials that might be helpful to people. So I've got some live stitches here. I've been picking them up, and I'm almost to the point where I can start knitting again. But I just want to show you how I do that, because sometimes you'll drop a stitch or you'll have to take out an entire round, and you don't want to have to take the whole thing out. You want to be able to pick up the stitches where you left off and start again and not start over again. A really important part of knitting is learning how to fix your mistakes, and I'm really good at that because I've made so many of them. Okay, so this needle is a size 5, and these are the circular needles that I'm using for this little sweater sample that I've got going. I don't want to use that needle to pick up these stitches because it will stretch the stitches out, which would mean that the next stitch would fall down a little bit, and this one even more, and this one even more, and then it would get harder and harder to pick them up. So I'm using a size 2. You can use a size 1 or a size 3. You know, it doesn't matter because it's not going to change the size of the stitches. You can, you're going to be coming back around and knitting with your larger needles. So we want to make sure that the stitch is mounted correctly. If we go through the front of the stitch, we're going to end up with a twisted stitch. We don't want that. We want the leg to be mounted correctly. So what that means is we're going to go in through the back of the stitch. And now you can see that stitch is mounted correctly and ready to knit. So the nice thing about this yarn is that it's 100% wool, non-superwash, and it's sticky. So these stitches are really good. They stay in place for the most part. But I still like to do a little bit of pinching right here. Pinch it a little bit, and then you go in through the back loop like that. And then that keeps this stitch from falling through the other one. The other thing I like to do is I put my thumb right next to the stitch I'm going to pick up. Put it through, and then I can just slide my my needle along my thumb, and so it's not so free floating anymore. It's really secured as I slip those in. So I'm just putting them back on through the back loop. Sometimes you're not going to be able to get it through the back loop. These are working pretty well. Sometimes it's just going to be hard for you, and you're going to have to put it on through the front. It's okay to do that, but you want to make sure that you recognize, maybe you want to mark it somehow, maybe you want to do something. When you come around to knit that, you're going to knit it through the back loop. And that will prevent you from having a slipped stitch, or excuse me, a twisted stitch. For the most part, though, the stitches are really going well. This is my beginning of round. You can see, here's my, oh no, it's not the beginning of the round. This is where I stopped knitting. But I can continue to put these back onto the needle like this. And then let me show you what I'm going to have to do. I can't just start knitting on it because here's my working yarn. I'm just going to get all these stitches secured back to where I want them to be. Hopefully I'll mount it correctly. Okay. They all fit on this little tiny 9-inch circular needle. And here's my beginning of round. You can see this is where my yarn, where I started with the cast on. So what I'm going to do is just slip these stitches back to the left hand needle. You go in from the front to the back of the stitch like that, and that keeps it mounted correctly. We're going to slip all the way back to where this stitch is. Just have a few more. That one's split, do you see? So when I go in, I want to make sure, move it around a little bit, make sure that it's not split. And there I go. Now this is not the needle that I want to use. I'm using this one. So all you do is you just ignore this part of your needle. I would, put the stitches down a little bit so that they don't fall out, and keep this one down below, out of your way. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but you can do it. Your yarn needs to start over the top of that other needle, and then you just start knitting. Whoops. And your stitches are all going to be the right size now because you are knitting with your size 5 needle. As I go along, I'm making sure that my stitches are mounted correctly so that I don't end up with a twisted stitch. Let me show you what to do. So let's just say that this is one of the stitches I had to go in through the front loop rather than the back. Do you see, there's the leg that should be on the outside. This should be in the back. Can you see, compared to this one, how this leg just goes from that stitch all the way over the top? This one goes from underneath and over. There's two things you can do. You can just put your needle through and go back through the other side. But really the easiest thing to do is to just knit it through the back loop. And then just continue knitting. So that's one thing that you can do. If you have a stitch that's split, you can move it back and forth. Make sure you've got the split portion back to the original piece of yarn. I'm almost to my my end of round. I don't have a marker in because I had to take the whole thing out, but it's right here. So I've got 2 more stitches, and I'm going to put in a marker. Oops, it just fell on the floor. So that's where I'm going to put my marker and just keep on knitting. So I hope that's helpful.